Let's talk about the events taking place that actually are taking place this evening. We are pre-recording this conversation, but we're going to be talking about it post-event, and that is a honey tasting event. And we have one of the sommelier. Am I correcting on that?
Sommelier.
Sommelier. Okay, I'm going to get you a little closer to that microphone.
There
again.
you go. How's that?
A little better. All right,
Okay,
sommelier.
good.
All right, my question. And you are Shawn Collingsworth. Where are you from originally, Shawn?
From the Midwest, north of Chicago,
I'm gonna
Lake
get you-
Forest, Illinois.
Okay, where in Illinois?
Lake Forest, Illinois.
Okay, Lake Forest. Okay,
Right.
and then how did you get into the field of being a honey connoisseur?
Well, I actually started raising bees when I was 12 years old. My 8th grade chemistry teacher was part of the Dedant family out of Illinois, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, honey suppliers as I said, in the world, dating back from the 1800s. So I was very fortunate to have him as my mentor, beekeeper. When I went to college, I had to give up the bees. Obviously, I went to college out in California. And then while I was there, I was working as an LA County Sheriff's deputy, and I assisted other beekeepers in the area, like in Malibu, Topanga Canyon, with their bees. And when I left the department and moved to Chicago, I met Denise, and we moved to Charlotte. I started raising bees again, my own bees, and I've been raising bees in North Carolina for the last 25 years. Now, as far as the honey tasting, Denise and I travel quite a bit. We taste honeys from all over the world. Our company is killerbeeshoney.com.
Okay. Killer Bees. Okay.
Killerbeeshoney.com, and it is not Apis scutellata, which is the Africanized honeybee. It's just a trademark name, along with our, as you can tell, our logo. And so we have actually two different logos. One is the politically incorrect label, the one that you're looking at right now on the back of my phone. And then my wife, who is an anti-gun commie liberal, has she said she would never sell anything with an AK-47. So what it is, it's a very empowered bee, and I think Denise has something to talk about.
This is all about diversity.
Oh, right. And that, by the way, that is our guest's wife, Denise Collingsworth. I like that. And by the way, the fact that this is an AK-47, not an AR-15 or anything of that nature, I just find interesting as well. But anyhow, why? I'm curious, Denise. When the topic came up of the politically incorrect form of
You can't stop yourself from laughing. I can't believe it. I grew up in Chicago.
Okay.
And when I met Shawn, he had moved. We actually both were in California for a long time. We both moved back to Chicago. Mm-hmm. My family didn't have guns, not in Chicago. So when I met Shawn, he said, "Well, I'm an ex-sheriff. I'm going to be carrying a gun," and of course my eyes bugged out. And I said, "Well, is it going to be loaded?" And I thought that was a legitimate question. But to get back to your point, so just different perspectives on the world. I said, that's great if you want to have that label, but I'm not selling honey with a bee holding a gun.
Right.
Not going to happen. So we needed another label. So the label you don't see, same bee, beautiful, gorgeous, sexy bee, without the gun.
Okay.
And I tell people, she is not powerful because she's sexy. She is sexy because she is powerful.
Mm-hmm. And probably also consumes a lot of honey.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think that's important, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, getting back, we're both foodies. My mother, she was a German Jew that escaped Nazi Germany when she was 14, right after Kristallnacht. Uh-huh. And so she taught me about food and how to prepare food and good food. She taught me some very valuable lessons. First and foremost, God put Gentiles on earth to buy retail. and second, about how to prepare a good meal. So after the sheriff's department, I was medically retired. I went to culinary school. I'm not cross-certified, but I can follow a mean recipe, and I sweeten everything with honey. Now, I say that because we're both very much foodies, and that we travel the world. We go to Europe at least once a year, usually twice a year, and we test honeys. I specifically have gone to Bologna, Italy, where I went to the CNR Research Institute, and this is getting back to your original question, and I took several classes on honey sensory analysis. So,
sorry, honey what?
Honey sensory analysis.
Honey sensory analysis.
Right. So honey, especially wildflower honey, has the same VOCs or volatile organic. There you go. Yeah. Volatile organic compounds.
I know what a VOC is.
As up to 600, like chocolate or red wine.
Oh, really?
And so what you're doing is that when you go to this, take these classes, and I'm at the second level, or level 1 honey sensory expert, where you taste around 41 to 43 different varietals of honey a day, and you are smelling them, you're tasting them for such things as structure, flavor, the aromas, and everything that goes into making the honey taste as it is, making a very specific varietal of honey. Now, in Europe, there are very strict standards for most foods, many foods. Like if you go and buy Parmesan cheese, you have DOP or Dominion of Providence. There are honeys that can only be sold and labeled from certain areas, like Champagne region for Champagne, right? So you have acacia honeys there, you have chestnut, you have a lot of Adriatic honeys. So we tasted many of them from all over the world, and so you learn to taste and judge those honeys and to see if they've been adulterated also. Most honey in the United States, sold in the United States, is adulterated, the ones that you see on grocery stores. We consume around 630, 650 million pounds of honey a year in the United States. We only produce around 150 to 180. So most of that quote-unquote honey comes from China and India and Vietnam, and it's adulterated. It's corn syrup, wheat syrup,
That's what I was wondering. When you said adulterated, it's basically using other products other than honey.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's in
corn
fact some
syrup
of it.
And things like
some of it isn't even honey. So it's junk. It's literally junk. So not only have I taken those classes, but I've gone to UC Davis, and at the school, the Mondavi School, which of course Mondavi.
Right.
Well, they have also mead and honey classes there. So I took the honey courses there, and they concentrated on the adulterations of honey.
I think people also assume that honey is all just sweet.
Right.
And it's not. Honey has all sorts of different flavors, which is when we have done these tastings and we do tours up at our apiary up where we live out in western North Carolina. We have not only our honey, which is mountain honey, tastes very different, but we always like to have an international honey. As Shawn said, we travel a lot. We always look to bring home regional honey, and it tastes different. And we like to get people to understand why it tastes different.
Okay, so you have a retail facility as well, am I correct? Killer Bees honey.
Yeah, we actually are more of an online presence. We don't have a bricks and mortar.
But you have retail.
Absolutely. We have a retail online location, and we are a real specialty item. We are a small artisanal honey producer.
You bring up a very interesting aspect about the aspect that it's a specialty item. I want to get back to that in a moment. We're doing a special program today, and this is Coastal Gardener, and we've got Shawn Banks with us today as well. And Shawn, by the way, last week kind of shocked me when he shared with me what honey is. And Shawn, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
A little closer to that.
Okay.
Okay, so what is honey?
It's bee spit.
It's bee spit. Okay. I find that fascinating, but at the same time, I'm sure that
It doesn't change the flavor or the
It's
or
a
the
little
nutritional
more
content.
than bee spit,
Well,
but you know.
what bees will do is they have a honey stomach also, and they have a separate stomach, and it's a honey stomach, and they collect the nectar, and as they're collecting the nectar, in their process of collecting it, they introduce enzymes, very important enzymes, such as invertase and diastase, which breaks down disaccharides into monosaccharides, and they do this throughout the hive when they share the honey. So when a bee comes in, a foraging bee, he passes that nectar on to a house bee, and they continually transfer back up, maybe sometimes upwards of 100 times. And each bee is introducing these enzymes, which breaks down that sucrose into glucose and fructose. And then they store it, and they drop the moisture level, because nectar is like 75 to 80% water. So they'll drop the nectar level down to below 18%, and then they seal at around 17.8%. They do this because in nature, bacteria and yeast are on everything. So yeast, water, sugar will ferment,
Right.
and so they don't want honey that is fermenting, outgasses methane, is poisonous. So they drop the moisture level down.
You said a moment ago about the issue of the
Adulteration.
adulterated honey. I find that fascinating. But the other aspect of this, and you've just shared with us, I think, an explanation. Honey does not go bad, if I understand that correctly. Am I correct on that?
If it is pure honey, they have found honey in Egyptian tombs that date back 3,500 years.
Wow.
Yes.
And it's because of the process of the manufacturing of honey, removing, the moisture.
Right.
The yeast, as I recall, you were talking about.
They reduce the moisture to stop fermentation process, but also honey is very high acidity. So it has almost the same acidity as a lemon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it doesn't have the lemon flavor, of course, unless they go to sunflower plants,
We're
etc.
going to get back to the adulterated level here in a moment. But something else that your wife, Denise, said a moment ago, and again, I just want to remind folks, we're talking to the owners of an organization called Killer Bees Honey, which is a retail facility. They do it by digital communications.
Online. Mm-hmm.
Denise said that we think of it as being sweet, but it's not always sweet. What are some of the other attributes of honey if it's not sweet? Can it be sour? That sort of thing?
Yes, you can come across sour honey, not sourwood honey, which is very specific. It
Right.
comes from the Oxydendrum arboreum tree that's in western North Carolina and parts of Tennessee and Kentucky, which is a world-class honey. We sell it, by the way. Shameless plug. So wait
a second.
Yeah.
Pardon me for interrupting.
Right.
The comment you made earlier, I think, is eye-opening and an important comment
Right.
for our consumers.
Right.
And that is the concept of adulterated honey. That we see these items on the counter.
Yeah.
It says honey on it, but unfortunately, due to marketing controls and allowances,
Yeah.
it is adulterated. And you said a few moments ago, Denise, that in some instances it's not even honey.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting is that Shawn mentioned a couple minutes ago, he was talking about European honey,
Right.
and DOP,
Dominion of Providence.
Dominion of Providence.
Mm-hmm.
And we, up in our apiary, follow a real European method of harvesting and producing honey. And I mention that because we don't add any adulterants to it. But in Europe, the DOP requires honey to be tested, to be analyzed, to meet real certain criteria. That's not the case in the United States. You can call something honey, and it doesn't have to be honey.
Just having a percentage maybe of...
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
exactly right. And it could be a minute percentage. The USDA has they have
Wow.
guidelines, but absolutely no requirements by law, which is very unfortunate because when China entered the World Trade Organization over 2 decades ago, they dumped all this junk in the American market, and it is literally overnight the price of honey dropped dramatically. And so your commercial beekeepers, who at one time were making most of their money on honey sales, then transitioned, or as they say, pivoted, to use the current vernacular, to commercial pollination, which actually is far more lucrative for beekeepers. And that's when they just move bees all over the country for pollination services, starting off with almonds. We don't do that. We don't move our bees. We're very specific. And let me just, very important mention, we have all of our honey tested for every possible agrotoxin, killer bees honey, and adulterants. And we sent it to Intertech in Germany. We've sent it to multiple labs here in the United States, up in Canada, 2 labs that have a nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy machine to measure for any added sugars. We publish those reports online, and we have been told specifically that we have the purest honey ever tested coming out of the United States.
Well, that's Shawn Collingsworth and his wife Denise Collingsworth, and again, of Killer Bees Honey. We're talking with them here for a few more minutes this afternoon on the topic of an event taking place this evening. And I'm looking at a note, Pam, Sweet Carolina Honey Showcase. That's the title of it. Okay, 5 to 8 this evening here at the community college. But we are pre-recording this in advance of that, which, by the way, as you're listening to the program, you missed it. However, what you're not missing, Shawn, is, and I'm talking Shawn Banks as well, is the value and the importance of sourcing your honey.
Right. That's right. Absolutely right. Because if you source your honey from the local beekeeper, and I feel very strongly about this, buy local. If you don't want to buy our honey, because our honey is flat out, I'll tell you right now, it's expensive. But we literally
sounds like it's worth it.
Well, we shipped a case of sourwood to Austria a few days ago, and literally the cost of shipping was Yes, like twice the cost. Because we publish all of our results of the testing online. So, but if you don't want to buy our honey, but you want to buy local, support your local beekeeper, because that's the only way that we can prevent this dumping of this junk coming in the United States. And you're supporting the local economy. I know that sounds trite, but it's really important.
Wait a second. That's one of the reasons we do Coastal Gardener.
Right.
We promote the local gardeners, the local garden centers, and the local
the local retailers and outlets and things like that,
yeah.
the honey producers here.
Yeah, no, this is important. And I think this is a great opportunity, not only for us to learn something, but also to promote the opportunity for our local beekeepers.
Right.
All right. Obviously, a lot to ask in such a short period of time, and I appreciate both of you being with us this afternoon. And again, that's Shawn Collingsworth and his wife, Denise, who demanded a separate
label.
I like that. The other aspect of this, are we seeing a greater interest on the part of beekeepers to be engaged? Obviously, this is one of the benefits of your program this evening at the Carter Community College, where you're going to be doing the showcase, the Sweet Carolina Honey Showcase. But is this also an opportunity to promote local?
Absolutely. North Carolina State Beekeepers Association has the largest number of apiculturists in the United States as far as clubs and members.
Really?
And they have taken at the forefront as far as getting making bona fides on certain honeys, specifically sourwood, because sourwood only grows in certain parts, the mountain region of Appalachia and the southern Appalachia. So they're very keen on that, and there are people that say something sourwood, or they'll say it's clover or some other what's called a varietal of honey that isn't. So I'm very keen on the promoting the local honeys and the NCSBA.
The other thing I want to put a little plug in, the whole reason this event is going on, Pam helped create this event, is because Western North Carolina has a new apiculture building, right? That they're building, $5 million building.
Right.
Fabulous building. David Tarpey, one of the country's best apiculturists, doing
He's an entomologist.
entomologists, doing all sorts of really wonderful research on the honeybee and honey. So this event is also to sponsor and help promote that.
I think it's an important, observation. We were talking earlier, and I've had the pleasure of talking with the Commissioner of Agriculture on this topic as well. North Carolina, as a matter of fact, Shawn surprised me. I didn't realize it. We're the sweet potato capital of the world, and of the world, or just the country.
The country, at least.
Okay, help me out, Shawn. But the other aspect, and we had an individual who would speak to us on our morning program years ago, who himself was a beekeeper, and he would always talk about the type of honey that he was manufacturing, which was coming from tobacco plants.
Oh.
And
Interesting.
I said, was it addictive? And he said, only in taste. But anyhow.
Good,
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
But
There's, I've never, in fact, I've tasted honeys. All over the world, as I said. I've never tasted tobacco honey.
well,
How about that?
He got his. He had his bees located, or his hives,
Yeah.
near a tobacco field.
Sure.
And so, of course, when it flowered, they would.
Of course.
Yeah. But there's one other aspect of this as we prepare to close. You mentioned the commercialization of the bees, but they're very important because they are a major part of the agricultural industry, are they not, Shawn?
Yes, without bees, not just honeybees, but without all bees, we wouldn't be able to have a lot of the fruits and vegetables that we have.
Yeah, and we've talked about the fact that I'm not a big fan of wasps and yellow jackets, and I'm sure I'm not one of their best friends either. But they're so important as far as the pollination aspect of it as well. But I think as we close with this, Shawn, and again Shawn Collingsworth with us, I think this is an important story about how important it is not only for the consumers but for the economy of North Carolina.
Well, as economy throughout the world, you have your almond groves in California,
Right.
where close to 2 million hives go starting in January. That's dependent on 100% pollination by honeybees. So 65 to 70% of all foods that we consume are vegetables, and then you're looking at dairy products, because who do you think pollinates the alfalfa crops for the cows, etc.? That's dependent upon pollination. And it's not just honeybees. It's also, we have solitary bees, we have semi-social bees. In North Carolina, I think we have 250 different species of semi-social and solitary bees. But everyone depends on the pollination services of all those tens of billions of insects out there doing their job for nature and for us.
I want to thank both of you for being with us this afternoon. This is a great program. And I want to congratulate you on your success. Killer Bees Honey. And you're located outside of Charlotte. Where in Charlotte?
Actually, up in the mountains. So maybe outside of Asheville is probably a
Lake
better.
Toxaway.
Lake Toxaway.
We live in Lake Toxaway.
Okay.
And it's killerbeeshoney.com.
killerbeeshoney.com. I want to thank both of you for being with us this afternoon. And Shawn Banks, well, this gives us another topic for later in the month. Thank you all for being part of Coastal Gardener here on the Talk Station.
And thank you for inviting us.
Our pleasure.